it possible for you to share the agenda as well?
Sure, it's in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I didn't mean to leave. There we go. Got it. All right. Click. So as I had mentioned kind of preemptively, we rolled forward the agenda item from last meeting of who did we want to speak to. As when I spoke with Marcia and some of the other members of the Racial Equity Subcommittee some months ago, people were in the process of deciding what groups they wanted to speak with. And at that point, we were looking at doing some outreach and speaking to Asian women who wanted to bring forward their experiences with the police and with policing and issues that were important to their community. But we didn't get a lot of conversation at the last meeting. So since I am coming into this fresh, I thought we would just have those two items move forward, and that be, again, who do we want to invite to hear from, to get input, to get some idea of how to shape some suggestions or recommendations coming from this subcommittee, and then also to address the issue of police participation. And so that's the second topic. So I'd like to just kind of open the floor for the first one and just say, who do you think we need to hear from based on your past experiences or anything you've heard in the community from the news? And tell us a little bit why you would like to invite that group. And don't be shy. Okay. I'm not hearing anything. Is that because people are thinking about it?
Celeste, I wonder, I'm just as background, if there are some new folks here, I wonder if the Racial Equity Subcommittee, just to provide a little bit of history for the Racial Equity Subcommittee, yes. We've had the subcommittee itself has had listening sessions for folks who identify as Latinx, for Black women specifically, and they've hosted they facilitated a dialogue between community members who were in direct action on the protests, as well as police officers, 3 police officers. So there's been some good conversations, some good collaboration. So I think what Celeste is trying to do, and I won't speak for Celeste, but just in our conversations, what we've discussed a little bit is about us, or the Racial Equity Subcommittee, just expanding those conversations, hearing more, and being targeted with the recruitment. So this subcommittee relies on the input of both community members and city partners as well. Anybody on this chat really has some good expertise, some good wisdom to share with us. So who do you all think would be good to hear from that we haven't heard from yet?
Or who would you like to hear more from? And again, this includes the police. It includes city response team, whether they be the emergency response team, whether it be the crisis response team, whether it be trauma-informed program that has the volunteers to come out, something that just kind of helps shape and fill out our understanding of building community partnerships. Okay. Thank you, Barb. I see that. Now, I do have contacts. Oh, good. Finally, there it is. I just got my chat to finally work. There it goes. Okay. Amy?
Yeah, what I was contemplating and sitting here thinking was a lot of folks talked about maybe attending other committees to kind of see what's going on. Like this week, I thought it was the Portland police commenting on the strategic plan. I thought that was going on all this week, starting tonight. So the 16th, 17th, and 18th. Maybe if we were to kind of listen to what some of the plans are that the city has proposed on this subject, maybe that would be a good place to like chime in with topics. Because I think a lot of people need a topic to focus on. I know I do better with a topic, you know, like a focused topic of something that's important. Theo, are those events this week? The precinct meetings?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it tonight?
No, I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Mary
Okay.
Claire can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep, 6 to 7:30.
7:30. Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And it's not the strategic plan. It's the 2020 year in review. I don't know the right word.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Annual
Mary
plan.
Claire, explain it. Why am I talking?
It's okay. No, you're doing great. It's the annual report. So the chief will be talking about, 2020 as it relates to the entire bureau, and then each night, tomorrow night will be north, then it's central on Wednesday, and it's east on Thursday, and the commanders will speak about what 2020 issues specific to their precincts.
And I see a comment here from Anika. That is a great suggestion. I actually work with Irene a lot. So I will give her a call tomorrow and try to connect with her prior to the other meeting. So thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I did not know she was in this position.
Oh, yes. She's been in that position over 10 years. And she definitely has a great pulse of the community.
That's right. She worked with the lawyer who I can't remember his name right now. Okay, you're right. I will give her a call. I know who you're talking about.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And to get back to what you were saying, Amy, can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by topics? You mean pick a topic and then ask the community members to come speak toward that topic, or just to ask them? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because I find that if we were to like take something that everybody's already talked about that they want to improve upon, and we move that into further discussion around the community opinions on what does improvement look like, or what would this look like to you if it was better, then we can maybe form recommendations to further the movement of what might already be happening, and we're just not up on it. That too,
Okay. All righty. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
And so I do have a few contacts with some of the groups. And I can also ask them just what are pressing topics within their groups. I didn't want to be the one to pick people and, make it look like it was just my decision. But so since you're suggesting topics, would you prefer group if we waited till we, I think it was it you, Barb, said that we attend some of these other meetings and just see what is the information, what's the news that's in the air, so to speak, there, or do you have other thoughts?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking Barb and also anybody, you know, do you want us to wait until after we attended some of these other precinct meetings? Or would you like me to reach out to groups and ask them what's going on within their community?
Let me know if I can talk. Okay, so what I'm going to say is I think that going to the precinct meetings is going to give us a lot of, or give your group or whatever you want to call it. I'm white, so I'm sort of like not the one that belongs at this table. But the precinct meetings, the hearing that's what, a week from tomorrow with Judge Simon. And then also what I was thinking of personally was liaisoning or just going and then maybe making plans with some of the other advisory committees for the Portland Police that are centered around the different races, like the Latinx Advisory Council and the Mary Claire, if you want to save me again, you can. There's a plethora of them, including the Slavic Advisory Council. Like that's a group that would be really cool.
Sure. Muslim Advisory Council. We have Alliance for Safer Communities, which is a LGBT advisory. So yeah, there's a number of.
Well, yeah. Everything, but there's no mental health advisory council.
Yes, we do. That's what BHUAC is.
No, that is not what BHUAC is.
Well,
we can talk about that, but that is not the same thing as a community advisory.
Well, because it's not public, you mean? Okay, we'll talk about that.
No, not even that, but that's okay. That's not the point. But I get your point. Just take mine there. So anyway, yeah, anywhere where it intersects, I think is important too. My thoughts.
Okay. Well, I can start the ball rolling and take advantage of some of the contacts that I have with various communities and touch base. I'll also go ahead and contact Irene Konev and have a conversation with her. And then I will get a chance to speak with Marlon Marion, who is a non-sworn staff member with PPB in the equity department, I think. We haven't talked yet, but this past week I had calls out to Deputy Chief Chris Davis and then to Commander Jay Bates. And so Commander Bates got back to me last week and recommended Marlon. And I'll probably hear from DC Davis as he gets through his his big list of things to do and his phone messages. And we're trying to coordinate.
Real quick, I think we talked about it briefly at when me and you and Claudia met, but DC Davis is no longer in that position.
Oh, no, I know that. But this is what I did is I touched base out of respect to the friendship we used to have and checking to see if he had a legacy. You know, I didn't know. And when I had spoken with him and Maria before I stepped into this, he was really excited. So I didn't know if he had someone in mind when he was leaving. So, you know, just trying to tie up loose ends and take advantage of that last minute connection. That's all. So yeah, we're trying to move ahead that way. But like I said, I wanted to get input from everybody on the committee because I didn't want to just step off on the connections I had. I wanted everybody to, be a part of this. And I know I don't know everybody and everything, so I wanted to make sure that I had as much broad input as I could. So that's plenty to start with. But if anybody thinks of anything more or there's something you want to add, please, you can always email me. And let's see, let me put my phone number in the chat here. And you can always give me a call and my email address as well. Okay. And that's the phone number. Oh, you know, you shouldn't hit enter too soon. There we go. Okay. So if there's nothing else we wanted to add on that agenda item, we can move to the next one. Anything else? We're done a little early. That's why I'm asking. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. So then the next thing on our agenda is to talk about another item that Marcia put in the mix, and that was having the police be part of the facilitation effort, bringing them to the table as partners as we try to build this community discussion, partnership, collaboration. And so again, I wanted to bring this up, bring it before this committee and have a conversation to get people's feelings on it, kind of gauge and test the waters and try to figure out if there are challenges or barriers, you know, to work our way through them. So does anybody want to lead off on to how they feel about the issue, whether they think this is high time or potentially challenging, you know, and start off the discussion. Well, while people might be percolating, Theo, can you give a little background as to how far we've come with establishing that relationship?
Yeah, you know, I've been here for 2 years now, and in my time, I've seen much more, and it's not a perfect relationship by all means, and Mary Claire can correct me if I'm wrong, because she sees police officers more frequently than I do. But I've seen collaboration, especially with this group and with the Behavioral Health Subcommittee, just grow incredibly in terms of a relationship, in terms of collaborative recommendations. I've seen that a lot. I've seen more police officers engaging in conversation. When I first got there, it was oftentimes Mary Claire and a few more representatives. Since through the work of community members, police officers, and PCCEP, all coming to the same meetings for a long time, whether it's online, it's just been online in the past year and a half, obviously, but I've just seen more collaboration. I've seen more conversations, and I think that's been a big help in terms of trust building. And I've also seen it in terms of collaborative approach to recommendations. What Marcia wanted to do was further that relationship, specifically on this subcommittee, and have a police officer come in and co-facilitate or help in whatever capacity they felt was appropriate. So what this is coming at a really interesting time, a really good time, where I think the trust building process has come a good distance, and I think it can go a long way additionally. And I think that having a police officer as a co-facilitator would go a long way in terms of building trust. Mary Claire's here. She works for the police department. She can correct me if I'm wrong, or she can add to any part of that conversation that she feels appropriate, or she can say nothing. Also, that's an option.
But yeah, one of the big things we were hoping to do by having the police there is not only to create a common language so that when we're talking about issues, it translates through their training and it echoes within their humanity, you know, their personhood, their being a resident in the city of Portland. And sometimes we speak different languages and we're saying the same thing, but it comes out sounding adversarial. And so that's one reason also why we want to bring in someone so we can get that translation, we can get that connection and build some type of resonance. So I mean, that you hear my reasons why, and I think I'm echoing some of the things that not only Marcia said, but Theo and his experiences said. But again, I want to hear from everybody. I don't want this, to be just my effort, because I want to make sure that I pay attention to the nuances that different communities experience in their engagement and encounters. And again, like I said, that also includes, the police themselves.
That's right. Barb, you have your hand up.
Oh, I do I? I forgot for a second there. I just wanted to add, because I mean, Abigail and I are the community members that are here, and Celeste and Amy are on the PCCEP, and Theo and Anika and Mary Claire are all staff, city staff. That it seems like in order to answer some of these questions, branching out is sort of what needs to be done. And what I was gonna share, just because mostly Celeste, you haven't been around, and Abigail, and I'm not sure how long Anika's had her eye on us or not. But the Behavioral Health Subcommittee is not quite a year and a half old right now. And one of the things that Amy's really focused on is inviting officers to come tell their truth, basically, as a way to build relationships. And the committee itself is lucky enough that there is an analogous part of the Portland Police Bureau, the Behavioral Health Unit, that as part of their outreach and engagement has pledged to, support us. So we basically, I think, have always had at least one member from the Behavioral Health Unit at our meetings. And we've done a fair bit of education with them first, which I hope a lot of that is still recorded, or is recorded, and people can go back and refer to that. But one of the things that we did to make things feel safe was to provide questions ahead of time. So the officers the officers knew, what to expect. And then we sort of went out of our way to keep them safe from situations where community members were or anybody was just coming on to the Zoom meeting, to be basically anti-cop while we were trying to do the opposite. And I'm going to say that we learned a heck of a lot talking to those officers. And I have a lot of gratitude for the lieutenant from the Behavioral Health Unit that also set us up with somebody else as he's gotten busier and busier. But he's somebody that Amy and I met because he's on one of the county advisory committees. So I just wanted to throw those connections and stuff out there.
Well, thank you for reminding me about trying to get questions and to shape the conversation. And I'll be talking with you about some of the strategies you've used to make it a safe environment, because I'm really concerned about that. I don't want anyone to feel like they're being held up as a sacrifice to any community. And so thank you very much for reminding me that I have experience in the room to help me do that. So having said that, I also want to ask you, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, and I also don't want to step on what you're doing. So is there any particular difference or approach you might see that we could take in this committee so that we're not duplicating what you're doing, but we're helping expand it?
I'm sure Amy has some ideas. I'm not sure if she's in a situation where she's ready to talk about them.
Okay.
I'm just saying, because she hasn't piped up yet, that anywhere that we can find intersectionality is great,
Mhm.
and working together is great. What the behavioral health subcommittee and the racial equity subcommittee did in the past year was team up and have a presentation from both BOIC, which is dispatch, and for the police and fire and EMS, and then also with a representative from TIP, which is trauma informed something or other, and they're the really cool people that are available 24/7 that get called out if somebody's dealing traumatically with basically usually a death in their family.
Mhm.
And so we learned a lot listening to them and having community conversations, and our two committees got together and put forth two recommendations that, although we can't really track if they're being put into place, we were told on paper that they were. So I thought that was a pretty good accomplishment between the two groups. And to me, bringing trauma informed anything toward the police and just making people aware of it, I think is really important, because I think they need to find the right balance between militaristic and trauma informed. And, you know, that's a whole nother speech that I give sometimes.
No, thank you. That, I mean, that's important to remember. I think I attended, that was one of the first meetings I attended. And so thank you very much for that as well. I see we have somebody new joining the meeting, M&M. Welcome. Would you care to introduce yourself and share a little bit about what you are hoping to accomplish at the meeting today?
I believe that's Marlon.
Oh, is that Marlon?
There he is.
Sorry, I didn't know that was a call out to me.
Hi, Marlon. How are you?
Good, everyone. How are y'all doing? My name is Marlon Marion, he, him, his. I'm the Equity and Inclusion Manager. And I just like being in this space and in this meeting. So that's why I'm here.
Well, thank you very much. And you will have a very short phone call from me. It was before the meeting started to say thank you for taking the time to join in. And so you caught us right when we were talking about thoughts, ideas, plans, reservations people had about having the police have a prominent role in facilitating the meeting and being involved. And one of the things that we want to make sure we do, and Barb has offered a lot of insight on that, is make sure we create a safe environment. And so I guess since you were here and we got Mary Claire, maybe you can share some of the things, or we can, you know, do this later, but share some of the things that you would want or need to create that safe environment that allows people to have honest and vulnerable and meaningful conversation.
I'm not opposed to having members of the Bureau being more actively involved in this subcommittee. I'm not exactly sure what that should look like, to be honest with you, but I definitely feel like we shouldn't move forward with it without getting community input on what's going to be best for them to feel safe. Because I work for the Bureau, it makes it hard for me to give that kind of statement without it seeming like I'm coming from the Bureau side. But no, I'm totally on board with us having, well, the Bureau having more involvement, particularly because I feel like they bring a lens that I feel like a lot of these advisories and committees need to have and hear. And they'll be able to stop us from moving forward on a bunch of different work that we don't need to waste our time working on or moving in that direction if we can't move in that way. If there's already a policy, something in place that's preventing us from being able to move in that direction anyway. And sometimes we get recommendations for things that we're already doing. So like you said, I think I heard you talk about duplication earlier on. I was just like, yeah, we already have that's already in place. So what you're talking about is there's already a policy there, and we just got done putting together a whole recommendation around this. When an officer who could be in the room or a member of the Bureau could be in the room and be like, that is already in place, and we don't need to. And I do feel like the committee has been doing a good job with having Bureau members participate in general. Mary Claire, I think, is at almost all meetings, and then some kind of AC or DC is in the space as well. I do know that certain community members feel uncomfortable with members coming in uniform. So I feel like there should be some discussion around that, whether or not they're armed or not unarmed. But the majority of our meetings have been via Zoom, so I don't know how. Like, I have no idea what that impact is having on individuals as well. So if we do decide to move in that direction, I just want to make sure that we're getting community input. Is where I stand on it, to be honest with you. And I'm sorry, I'm with my kids right now, so that's why I'm.
Oh, that's quite all right.
Celeste, maybe I can help now with some of the way we proceeded was we created questions in advance, and then we kind of made sure to not let the audience like blindside the officers with questions that didn't pertain to the subject matter, that were derogatory or accusational. We really just wanted to create what I called a balanced environment where everybody felt like this is where we're going, this is our plan, and we kept a lot of the Zoom bombers out. You know, like if they tried to come in and Zoom bomb us, Theo and everyone was really good at catching it. So for me, safety is just making sure that everybody's aware of what's required of them before they enter the meeting. You know, no surprises, in other words. And that's what we've been doing, is informing people of what the subject matter is, talking about the subject matter, having input about it, but trying to stay on track rather than go off on other subjects that we can't answer anyways because it's not, you know, wasn't in the picture. So streamlining it, that's how I think we were able to create that box safe environment, just by getting people prepared in advance, knowing what was expected, and then staying with the agenda, you know. And then later on, the officers wanted to stay and communicate anyways. We originally gave them the option to not stick around if they didn't want to, but then they decided they all want to stay. So that was pretty cool too. So it's just making it open where folks can feel like if they need to go. If they don't want to talk about it, then fine. But here's the questions we're looking for answers to. And that's what we did and been doing, and it's working.
Go ahead, Barb, I see your hand up.
Thanks, Theo. So yeah, good job, Amy, of seconding pretty much what I explained. So we're both on the same page there. I want to thank Marlon, if that's what I'm allowed to call you, because I have still never met you in person, about bringing up the police in uniform and guns, because I'm having a feeling you may not have seen me in the chat talk about it. But I just want to share this really brief anecdote of something that happened in our county behavioral health advisory council, not when Amy was co-chair, but after that. We had a presentation from, I believe it was called Trauma Informed Oregon, a presentation about, you know, what having trauma-informed meetings what was like, and what was needed, and what have you. And it was a great presentation. We had 2 presentations that day. The second one was from Lieutenant Casey Hetman, who came and described the BHU to everybody at our county meeting. But Casey was in full uniform, and Casey had a gun, and this was pre-pandemic. We were all in the same room. I was sitting next to basically a new recruit for the group who, we were this close to actually having to leave the room because he was so activated just at the fact that Casey, was in full uniform with the gun. And that really sort of was one of those, bad planning moments, and we shouldn't have had those 2 presentations at the same time, for sure. I guess unintended consequences. So I just kind of want to share that as something that, has been sort of learned along the way.
Given that we've got Zoom meetings, do you think that helps mitigate it, or is that something we just want to bring forward as a standard practice moving forward?
I'm not sure what you mean as a standard practice, but one is just the idea of, if you're going to have more than one presentation, do they actually go together or not go together?
Yeah.
But then there's also police in the room. And to be honest, since that experience, because I was living it through my peers' eyes, I've spoken up about it a lot. I know it's a reason why some community members don't come to PCCEP meetings when they're in person. And immediately when we went to Zoom, I saw this as an advantage to mitigate that. It's not in place of when we can meet again, like, doing coffee with the cop or doing stuff in person with cops. But I think it's something that can be taken advantage of in the current environment.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, you brought up something, I think it was Barb that might have said that early, that most of the people in this meeting today are not community members. And so I know you are a student working, or rather student in attending this meeting, but I just was curious if you had any thoughts, Abigail, something you might have seen as you studied the PCCEP meetings and attended them, and maybe talking to or interviewing other people. Is there anything that you have heard that you want to bring forward?
To be honest, this is my first ever meeting with you guys. Yeah, and I'm getting my bachelor's in political science currently and finishing my last semester at Clark. So I've only interviewed a couple handfuls of people. I live out in Richfield, work in Portland, so I don't feel like I'm the best candidate to give you a proper answer, especially since I'm here to kind of write and report on what you guys are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So apologies.
No, that's okay. Thanks. Just didn't want to ignore you, since it was brought to my attention that most of us are here in some official capacity. So.
But that doesn't mean we aren't all community members. I just wrote that in the chat.
Yes,
realizing that and thinking about that, because that's the first thing in order to be a member of PCCEP is you do have to be a member of the community.
Yeah.
And I was gonna just wonder if Abigail, as a journalist, had any questions she wanted to pose. Just to welcome you into the environment, and feel free to pass, but sometimes practicing with strangers is the best.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One of the big questions I wanted to ask first off, while I write about all this, if all you prefer to remain anonymous. My professor gave me permission to take quotes directly from the meeting, but I can't reach out to you guys afterwards. And so I was curious if you all want to remain anonymous while I take quotes.
All of these meetings are public meetings, so all of they're public record. Anybody can come to them, so you can pull any quotes you want from these meetings. And also, we have meetings every month. We have a general meeting. We have a lot of subcommittee meetings. We also have a court date hearing with Judge Simon that will be probably publicized in the news on the 24th, Tuesday the 24th. So that'll be an interesting thing. You have some wonderful people on this call. I would encourage you. Most of our contact information is online, but I would encourage you to reach out to any of the folks here. And I know most of the folks on this line, and they're all generous with their time, not to speak for anybody, but I encourage you to reach out to anybody here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then the other question that's kind of been brewing in my head. Most of the time when you hear about like racial justice in terms of the police, there's not a lot of conversation about including the police in the meeting. So what is prompting you as a subcommittee to include police officers into these type of meetings?
Who are you asking that? Are you asking all of us, or me specifically, or Theo?
Just a general
Determined to help.
to
If I
everybody.
might, maybe this.
Go ahead, Amy.
Amy, you might be on mute.
Stupid thing. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. The whole reason we're together forming this collaborative effort is based upon an event that happened, I think 10 or 11 years ago, called the settlement agreement. Are you familiar with that document?
I am not, but I will research it further when we're done.
The document outlines that one of the major things that PCCEP does is start really trying to develop working relationships with the police and building more trust with the police in the community. So it's kind of in our charge. You know, it's something that was written out as something that everybody wanted to happen, which was more relationship building with the police department on all levels. So that's how come we're doing it this way. It's like part of our charter, so to speak.
Yeah. So the point of the PCCEP is to elevate the voice of the community, right? So the community, the PCCEP was formed in 2017 after the COAB became defunct, right? So Mayor Wheeler charged this community group with as a community oversight board for the police department. So the point is to improve the trust between the community and PPB, Portland Police Bureau, and in the city more broadly. So community members have said for a long time that they would like police officers to show up more frequently to these public meetings and to say more. So the PCCEP would have meetings, public meetings, community would come and they would tell their stories. City staff would come, Mary Claire would come, city attorneys would come, the Department of Justice would come. Lots of people would come. Police officers, for whatever reason, whether it was safety, whether they didn't feel included, whether they didn't feel represented, but they wouldn't talk very often. So the Racial Equity Subcommittee, with Marcia Perez previously in the chair position, and now Celeste, has decided that in order to help combat that, and help build the trust further between community members and police officers, that this subcommittee would really intentionally try to hear from police officers as a more collaborative endeavor to improve recommendations and to ultimately improve trust between community members and police officers, because that's from the community, right? So community members have said this, and now Marcia previously and Celeste wants to do it more, because as I said in the beginning, the real point, the heart of the PCCEP is to elevate the voice of the community in order to create and to improve the trust between PPD and the community, because PCCEP is really it's a community group. It's charged with really helping helping with the microphone, I guess, of the community.
Thank you. That's really informative.
I'm not a PCCEP member, just so you know.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And then with the BLM/Antifa riots back in 2020, does it kind of give an idea of the history of the relationship during that time? Was it hard to keep that relationship going with officers when there was clearly a clash between the two sides out on the streets? And this is another question to everybody.
That was before my time, but I know that we recorded all of the meetings, so you might check those meetings. But that was also during the time when Marcia Perez was chairing this committee, correct?
So if you don't mind, can I add a few things too, Celeste?
Yeah. Well, I was waiting to see what Theo was going to say about whether Marcia was chairing it, because before, I'll turn it over in a second, Barb. I was thinking that one of the things that Marcia had done was manage to build a police presence in this committee. So just the fact that she was able to keep it going through that speaks to some intentionality on the attendees, the members' part. But Barb was there, and so she could fill it in. Go ahead, Barb.
Okay, what I put in the chat, I'm missing the last word, events. But one of the things that the subcommittee did, which was really telling, was they had one of the mothers of one of the victims of police violence here on Zoom to talk about her story. And then they actually got her a t-shirt to wear. The committee bought it for her because she and somebody else were going to Washington, DC for an event, which I just thought was really, really cool and made an impression on me a lot. And that was when Marcia was here. And I can't remember quite what else I was gonna say along those lines. But yeah, the Say Her Name events and then the ones we did together were both pretty timely. And then I guess, I can't remember the dates, but right after the George Floyd murder, the PCCEP had 3 listening sessions that had, I think each of them averaged 200 people, maybe 150 community members talking about their feelings about the events and the police and what have you. And then, when the behavioral health subcommittee talked to some officers about what it was like after all of that and how they felt. I specifically remember we talked about graffiti that's, up and around the police station now downtown, that how does it feel to come to work to serve and protect when, there's hate speech? about you, about you. And one of the officers brought up that they're routinely flipped off now as they're driving around, not by everybody, but that certainly affects your morale. So yeah, so there's been some listening and synthesizing, but there can always be more.
Yeah, and that was really, the Say Her Name event was really in collaboration with AMAC, the Albina Ministerial Alliance Coalition on Police Reform. And Shirley Isidore was there. She's the mother of Kendra James, who was killed. But that was really a collaboration. So one thing that the Racial Equity Subcommittee has done in the past is really build meaningful collaborations with groups that like AMAC, that has been doing the work for longer than PCCEP, much longer, and Amici in this. I wanted to ask if Mary Claire or Marlon had any input on like collaborative efforts and what it's been like since, I guess, everything being online since the pandemic really struck.
You're gonna forgive me, Theo. Can you ask that question one more time?
Yeah, what's it been like? What do you think it's been like to try to build collaboration and build community trust in the time of pandemic?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. From my perspective, I feel like, I'm sorry, because of the pandemic, we were able to get significant amount or more participation over Zoom. And I don't know if that has to, if it's, I don't know. I just feel like since 2020, we've been getting more input and more voices from the community around what they want the Bureau to do, and more people wanting to be involved. Like even when we started our Police Equity Advisory Council last year, we didn't get that many applications. And then this year, ever since 2020, we've gotten so many more people wanting to participate. Now, as it pertains to the Bureau and they're wanting to engage, we have been trying to get more officers at the officer level because that was a request from PCCEP to come and participate. But another issue that we're dealing with as it revolves around that is, one, some of the experiences that was brought up before about what they experienced when they came to the meetings. And then two is we're just so low staffed, we need our officers on the street. So just having people at the officer level being able to be here has been another issue. But as it pertains to me and my body of work within the Bureau, I feel like ever since 2020, I've been getting, well, even before I felt like I had support, but I feel like I've been getting significant amount of more support ever since 2020 from the Bureau and Bureau leadership. I'm gonna jump off real quick. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and Theo, to follow up on that a little bit, I agree with much of what Marlon said. I do think during the pandemic, though, the one drawback was, we have in some ways expanded the voices are heard because it's Zoom, but you haven't had the personal interactions that oftentimes are the foundation of trust and legitimacy. When people interact personally with an officer or officers, you get to know them as a person or whatever, and that obviously was hampered by the restrictions that COVID brought in terms of not being able to meet in person, or having a glove up and not having these any kind of personal interactions. So I think that was the one drawback to it. But as Marlon says, I think the other part clearly is just being stretched. We have officers that staff each one of the advisory committees, but, so that we want connections to all these different groups. But as he said, we're losing officers, on a daily basis right now. Probably in a week or so, we'll be in, less than 800 officers, and, and the community clamoring for us to, provide the function that we're supposed to be, and we're obviously not able to respond to the calls at all, or in as timely a fashion as the public wanted. So it's that's some of the difficulties we're having while still wanting to to be involved and to have these, relationships. So, but I think there's a lot of offices that would love to, establish better relationships. I don't think anybody likes to think that they're out risking their lives every day and people think, disparagingly of them, so it does make it, a difficult, thing to do every day when, as Barb says, you get flipped off or whatever. And, we had a community meeting the other night because we had sort of a drive-by down my street. And the officer, who was just, terrific. And he said, it just made him feel so good to come to this courtyard and talk to people in person and them to ask him questions or to, he said, when he was driving here, he got flipped off 3 times driving, from Central to, to Northwest. And then for people to be welcoming and want to talk to him, which just made him feel, so much better, and said, this is really why I got into this business and why I love my job. But there were days when it's hard so I think all those, things are factors that weigh on, the Bureau and building the relationships. So.
Thank you, Mary Claire.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, at this point, it seems like I've got a good to-do list. And if there's no more questions you have, Abigail, or there's nothing anybody else wants to add, it sounds like we are in agreement that we do want to have the police being a major and significant participant. And so we're going to move forward with that assumption. And I guess this would be, if nobody has any more questions, maybe we just do a quick check-in, if anybody's got any closing statements, and then put our agenda together for next month. Barb, I see your hand up. Is that leftover or is that a new one? Oh, it just disappeared. Okay.
Yeah, is that a new one? Go ahead, Barb.
Okay, for me, it just disappeared.
As a mute button appears, so I can unmute myself, I will. I am so sorry. I don't know how to turn my phone lock off like when I'm in a meeting. Anyway, what I was gonna say, I'm now forgetting, so never mind. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's all right. No worries. No worries.
Just said something. Oh, I know what it was. Sorry. I wanted to call everybody's attention to the email that I copied everybody on that I got from Lieutenant Casey Hetman about inviting officers, because I reached out specifically about the officer who wrote the op-ed, and Casey wrote a really kind reply. I need to talk to him to find out exactly what he meant. But I just want to call everybody's attention to it because that's the right thing to do.
Are you thinking you want to have him come and speak at the Behavior Health Subcommittee, or are you thinking this is a good venue here for the racial equity?
No,
Casey.
No. So Casey, sorry, I'm trying to not be confusing, yet I'm being confusing. Lieutenant Casey Hetman is the behavioral health unit head guy, and he's been coming to our meetings, et cetera, and I feel like I had built up enough of a relationship with him that when this other officer wrote an op-ed that was in the Oregonian a week ago, and I'm pretty sure I forwarded it to everybody from the Behavioral Health Subcommittee group. That was an idea, was to reach out to that officer. So I ran it through, sorry, Mary Claire, I didn't even think about getting a hold of you. I ran it through Casey, basically. And he said that officer's on leave and we should respect his, you know, his being on leave, et cetera, et cetera. But then he also said he was passing my request along and hooking me up with the EAP people. I think as a check-in for people who were being invited. And so I'm not 100% sure what he meant by that. And that's what I'm talking about. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, so at this point, besides me taking some time to talk with Irene Konev and then just getting a chance to actually really meet with Marlon and Mary Claire, what else do we want on the agenda moving forward for next month? Okay, this is what I propose then. I don't know if I'm going to actually have anyone coming to present. So I will check in with everybody via email, or you can also contact Claudia or Theo. But I'll let you know what comes out of the conversations that I do have. And we can just figure on building it slowly but surely. I'm not trying to start running off the bat. So if you're okay with this pace, thank you. It gives me a chance to build something substantial and that actually keeps moving ahead the work that Marcia and everybody else who's attended has already started. Theo, is there anything you can think of that I need to cover before we say thank you to everyone?
No, thank you all for a good meeting. I appreciate you allowing me to be here and I appreciate you being here.
Okay, and then Theo, I'll check in with you after I get a chance to, like I said, meet with Marlon and Mary Claire and speak to Irene, and then we can try building an agenda from there. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your being here and your support.
Sounds good. Thank you, Celeste.
Would you keep the meeting open for a second so I can put my email in here for Abigail, please?
Oh, yes, please do. Yeah, we will. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary
Thank
Claire.
you. Good night.
Thank you, Anika. Thank you,
Sure. That's great.
Gail, Barb, Amy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Celeste.
Celeste, are you going to the hearing